There's a certain kind of conversation that feels like it was always going to happen. Like the moment the first sentence is spoken, you can already sense where it's heading. Not because anyone intends to create conflict, but because the people involved carry such different ways of seeing the world that disagreement isn't just possible. It's almost guaranteed. And that's the feeling I keep coming back to whenever I sit with All in the Family, especially in those episodes where the tension doesn't surprise you. It slowly reveals itself as something inevitable, something built into the relationships from the very beginning. I'm thinking about one of those evenings in the bunker living room where the topic doesn't even feel controversial at first. Something like a news story playing on the television about changes happening in the country. Maybe something involving shifting workplace rules or new social movements gaining attention. And it's introduced in such a casual way that you almost believe, for a moment, that this could stay light, that it could just be background noise. Archie is sitting in his chair, as always, watching, reacting quietly at first, his face telling you more than his words do, because there's already a response forming, already a judgment taking shape, and even before he says anything, you can feel the direction the conversation is going to take. Is nearby, moving gently through the room, offering little comments, little attempts to keep things pleasant, and there's something about her presence that feels like a soft layer over everything, like she's trying to cushion whatever might come next, even if she doesn't fully know what that will be. Then Archie says something, not loudly, not dramatically, just a simple observation about what he's seeing. But it carries weight, because it's rooted in his worldview, in the way he understands change, in the way he interprets anything that feels unfamiliar or unsettling. Mike hears it, of course he does, and his reaction comes almost naturally, like it doesn't even require thought. Because for him, these topics aren't abstract, they're important, they're connected to fairness, to progress, to the idea that things should evolve. And so he responds, not aggressively, but firmly. And right there, in that moment, you realize that the disagreement isn't forming, it's already there. It's been there all along, waiting for something to bring it to the surface. Gloria senses it, too. You can tell in the way she listens, in the way she looks between them, in the way she prepares herself to step in if things go too far, because she's seen this pattern before. She knows how these conversations unfold. At first, the exchange is measured, each person speaking in turn, each person offering their perspective, and there's even a kind of calm to it, like maybe this time it will stay within those boundaries. Maybe this time it won't escalate. But there's something underneath that calm, something steady and persistent, because neither Archie nor Mike is really open to changing their position, not in a fundamental way. And that creates a tension that doesn't need to rise quickly, it just needs to exist. Archie frames his thoughts in terms that make sense to him, drawing on his experiences, his values, his sense of what's right. And there's a consistency to it that feels almost immovable, like he's not just expressing an opinion, he's defending a way of life. Mike counters with his own logic, his own understanding of the world, his own belief that things need to change, that progress matters, that holding onto outdated ideas can cause harm. And he doesn't raise his voice, but he doesn't soften his stance either. So the conversation moves forward, not in a straight line, but in a kind of slow, looping pattern returning to the same points, the same disagreements, each time with a little more emphasis, a little more weight. It tries to ease it, offering small comments that redirect, that soften, that remind everyone that they're together, that they care about each other. And for a moment, those efforts seem to work. The room feels lighter, the tension less noticeable. But then it returns, not because anyone is trying to restart the argument, but because the disagreement hasn't gone anywhere. It's still there, just beneath the surface, waiting for the next sentence to bring it back. And that's where the inevitability becomes clear, because it's not about this specific topic. It's about the way these characters are built, the way they think, the way they respond, the way they interpret the world around them. The living room setting makes it even more intense, because there's no distraction, no escape, no shift in scenery to break the rhythm. It's just this ongoing conversation, contained within those walls, echoing slightly as it circles back on itself. This is what made the show feel so different when it first aired in the 1970s, because it didn't treat these disagreements as one-off moments. It treated them as part of daily life, as something that happens again and again, in small ways and large ones. The humor doesn't come from resolving the conflict. It comes from recognizing it, from seeing how predictable it is, how inevitable it feels, how each character falls into their role without even trying. You might find yourself smiling at the way Archie insists on his point, at the way Mike refuses to let it go, at the way Gloria tries to mediate, at the way keeps offering kindness. But that smile is layered with something else, something that acknowledges the tension rather than escaping it. Because the tension never really disappears, it just shifts, it just changes shape. It just settles into the room in a way that feels almost normal after a while. As the conversation continues, the voices might rise slightly, the packing might quicken, but it never feels like a sudden explosion. It feels like a gradual deepening, like the disagreement is becoming more defined rather than more dramatic. Archie's worldview drives everything here, not because it's louder, but because it's consistent. It doesn't bend, it doesn't adapt easily, and that creates a steady point of friction against the other perspectives. Mike and Gloria challenge that worldview through conversation, through persistence, through the simple act of not agreeing. And that challenge is what keeps the tension alive, what keeps the conversation moving even when it's not progressing. It changes the tone in subtle ways, in the way she speaks, in the way she listens, in the way she tries to keep the emotional connection intact. And those small shifts matter. They keep the scene from becoming harsh, even as it remains uncomfortable. And that discomfort is essential, because it reflects something real about the time, about the cultural shifts happening in America, about the way families were navigating those changes in their own homes, often without clear answers, often without agreement. The show allowed audiences to laugh at that discomfort, but it didn't remove it, it didn't resolve it. It just presented it in a way that felt honest, that felt recognizable. As the episode moves toward its end, there's no clear resolution, no moment where one side wins, No neat conclusion that ties everything together. Instead, there's a kind of quiet settling, a sense that the conversation has reached its natural stopping point, not because it's been solved, but because it can't go any further right now. The characters remain in the same space, the same relationships, the same underlying disagreements, and that's what makes it feel so real. Because life doesn't always provide closure, it doesn't always offer clear answers. Personally, I find that kind of storytelling deeply engaging, even if it's a little uncomfortable to sit with, because it mirrors the way real conversations work, the way disagreements can feel inevitable, the way they can repeat, the way they can linger. And that's why All in the Family still resonates today, because those dynamics haven't changed. People still have these conversations, still hold onto their perspectives, still struggle to find common ground. There's something almost reflective about the ending, the way the room quiets down, the way the characters return to their routines, the way the tension remains just beneath the surface, not gone, just paused. And as you sit with that feeling, you realize that maybe the point isn't to resolve the disagreement. Maybe it's to understand it, to recognize it, to see how it shapes the people involved. So the conversation ends, or at least it pauses, and you're left with that lingering sense of inevitability, that awareness that it will happen again, that these differences will resurface, that the cycle will continue. And in a way, that's what makes the show feel so honest, so grounded, so real, because it doesn't pretend that disagreement can be avoided. It shows you what it looks like when it can't be.